How I caught my teacher and my best friend doing the dirty. So everything was fine up until the middle of the year when she started acting really strange, and so did he. So at the time I was 13 and she was 14. And I'm pretty sure my teacher was in his mid-20s or 30s. So basically she's the type of girl who literally hates school and would do anything to get out of class. Then I noticed her getting early to class and not leaving until everybody else left. Then I started paying a little more attention, and he would always walk by her desk and slip her notes and candy and just weird stuff, and it was really strange to me. He also moved to her desk right next to his, which his was all the way in the back left corner of the classroom. He would also always make jokes with her, which I didn't really understand until I found out they were sleeping together. So on Friday, my mom messaged her parents asking if they could pick me up Monday because my parents were going out of town that weekend and I hated riding the bus. Well, I'm guessing she didn't know that I was going home with her Monday. So that Monday, I got into her mom's car and I asked her mom where she was. Her mom said that she was failing math and her math teacher offered to tutor her. This teacher was also brand new. I'm running out of time, so like for part 2. Here's part 2 of how I found out my best friend was sleeping with our teacher. So continuing on with the story, I told her mom that I've never seen him tutor somebody before. Plus, she told me her grades were sky high in that class. I ended up forgetting my pencil pouch, which had my keys to my house in it, so I had to go back anyways. And when I went back, the door was locked. And like he had something over it or whatever, but I could see under it because he didn't cover it all the way. And she was on his desk and he was kissing her or doing weird stuff. I knew her mom wouldn't believe me if I told her what I saw, so I just told her it was an emergency and she was in trouble. So we booked it back to the classroom. And at first we didn't see them, and then she seen a foot come from beside the desk. Mind you, we're peeking under it, so we couldn't really see much. She started banging on the classroom door and screaming. I've never seen her this mad. I was honestly terrified that I ran into a separate classroom. The teacher to this day, I'm pretty sure he's still in jail, and she is still homeschooled and grounded with no phone. We found out that he was married with 4 kids. Well, was married. Story time of how my crazy ex-stepmom tried to kidnap me. So my mom and dad are divorced, obviously. Okay, so here's some information that you need to keep in mind. My dad and my so-called stepmom are usually off and on a lot. This is also semi-important. I go to my mom's Mondays through Fridays, and on Fridays my dad picks me up from school and I go to his house till Sunday. Well, one day on a Friday, my stepmom comes to the school to pick me up. She does every once in a while, so I didn't really question it. On the way home, she was acting really nice to me, but strange at the same time. She said that she was going to take me to some ice cream shop, and she needed my phone for GPS because apparently hers died. About 40 minutes later, I asked her, I was like, how far is this ice cream shop? And for about 2 hours, she kept saying, we're almost there, we're almost there. We then arrive at some hotel, and then she said my dad was going to meet us there. Everything just started to seem really off to me, so I asked her for my phone back. She then replies with no. Then I ask her why, and get ready for this. She says, because I'm your new mom, so I'm your boss. I'm running out of time, like for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how I almost got kidnapped by my crazy ex-stepmom. Continuing on with the story, after she told me that she was my new mom, I looked at her and I was like, excuse me? Mind you, this conversation is taking place outside of the hotel. She said, daughter, no more questions. If you cooperate, you'll just make your life so much easier. So we check into a hotel and I'm literally just sitting on the bed staring at the wall. She tells me I have to earn her trust to be able to have my phone back. My mom and dad both have me on Life 360, so I was really just hoping that they'd figure out where we are and come get me. So this crazy lady ends up taking me to McDonald's. I was starving, so I got some chicken nuggets and we went back to the hotel and ate it there. She was trying to act like everything was all cool like she normally does, but I was honestly freaking out. Then she comes to tell me that me and her will be moving to Mississippi by ourselves, and I will become one of her own. Guys, at this point, I'm literally panicking and I have no idea what to do. I was only 12 at the time, so I wasn't really that intelligent. Then we hear like 5 multiple bangs on the hotel door. I'm running out of time, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I almost got kidnapped by my crazy ex-stepmom. Continue on with the story. After we hear like 5 loud bangs on the door, we open it. Well, she opens it. She made me hide in the bathroom corner. And it was the police. I mean, I knew they would come because my crazy ex-stepmom is honestly really stupid. But just wait till I end up finding out what she was actually gonna do with me. They end up searching the hotel and finding me. So there were 3 policemen in the room. She was handcuffed already, and they had her on the bed talking to her, I guess. A couple seconds later, we hear a knock on the door, and I was thinking it was my mom or dad. No, it was 2 big men that she was trying to sell me to. Yes, 2 big men that she was going to sell me to. She was legit gonna sell me to sex trafficking. I think that's what it's called, I'm not sure. She's in jail, and so are the 2 men. I'm not really sure what went on with them 3. My mom did end up coming to get me, and my dad also drove up there just to apologize to me. My mom didn't let me see him for a while. But my mom and me ended up moving far just to be safe. Story time of how I got sexually assaulted by my childhood best friend. So it was around 2nd grade, and at that time I had just moved, so of course I transferred schools, and I didn't really know anybody. There's this little girl in the neighborhood, same age as me at that time, that would ride her bike up and down the street constantly until one day she finally talked to me. She was really sweet, and for a while we'd just ride our bikes around and play like normal kids would do. And eventually we started getting really close. My mom always told me she despised the girl and got really weird vibes from her, but like of course I didn't care, and I continued to play with her because, you know, that was my best friend at the time. And so one day she asked me to play house with her, and I thought, well, you know, just gonna be like sisters and taking care of babies and stuff like that. But that is far from what she meant. Mind you, we were both in 2nd grade. She started to touch me, and once I hesitated, she cautioned me that everybody does it and this was okay. Then she started telling me about the birds and the bees. I nicely nodded my head and just disagreed with her, and when I got up to leave, she pushed me back down to the floor. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I got sexually assaulted by my childhood best friend. So continuing on with the story, after she pushed me down to the ground, she continued to touch me in all the places that I did not want to be touched. Keeping in mind that we were only in 2nd grade, I found this very strange. It was known as my no-no square, so I honestly did not want to be touched there. After a while of convincing, I finally just stayed still, and she continued to do stuff to me. Finally, she let me go home, and as I was walking out the door, she whispered in my ear, "If you ever tell anybody about this, I will snitch on you and reverse the story." Honestly, I was just traumatized about what just happened, so I kept it to myself, and I honestly did not want to tell anybody because I didn't think anybody would believe me anyways. She continued to do this for about a couple months, and heaven only knows if I was the only person that she did this to. Because she did hang out with a couple other girls, and they honestly seemed a little scared of her. Anyways, to this day, she still sends me pictures of us from when we were children, acting like nothing ever happened. I don't know if there was something going on with her that I did not know, but to this day, it honestly still traumatizes me that a 2nd grader could do something like that. Story time of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends, and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him, and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap, and then I figured out that he had the same last name as me, and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, now I don't have to change my last name when we get married. So we hung out the rest of the baseball game, and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like, his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night, and me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot. We may have hooked up a couple times, but I had to keep this all secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come, and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, me and his 9 months were coming up. Also, he was adopted, and his foster family absolutely adored me, so they were okay with me keeping it a secret from my grandma. They were the ones to help me tell her. So not only were our 9 months coming up, but his birthday was the next day. And he told me the only thing that he wanted for his birthday was for my part of the family to know that we were together. So one day I sat down at the table and I was like, hey, I think it's about time that I tell you. And then I told her everything, and she asked for a picture. I showed her a picture, and she was like, "Aw, he's cute. How old is he?" At first, she was okay with everything, and the age difference she was kind of iffy about, but then she accepted it. Then she asked his name. I told her his name, she said last name, gave her the last name, and she flipped out. She took my phone, didn't give me an explanation, and told me that if I ever spoke to him again, I would never be allowed out of the house. Finally, after she calmed down, she came to tell me that he was my brother. She asked if we had did anything, and I of course said no, but yes, we did. I'm running out of time, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, I didn't believe her not one bit, but then I realized the reason why I was attracted to him is because he kind of looked like me. No, I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, I did start to question because everybody did say we looked like brother and sister. I asked her for proof. She didn't have any actual proof that we were brother and sister, but then everything started adding up. I told him, and then he didn't believe me until he asked his foster parents who his parents were. Mind you, me and him never spoke about our real parents because we both told each other that we were uncomfortable speaking about it. Then we did find out that we had the same exact mom and dad. Me and him were both in absolute shock and had no idea what to do. I mean, we kind of were in love with each other, you know? So we decided to just date for a couple more months. I had to tell my grandma that we broke up and we were just hanging out and getting to know each other as brother and sister. But then we both decided that we needed to break up because it started to get a little weird. We never told absolutely anybody about this but my grandma. His foster parents didn't even know that we were siblings. And to this day, me and him do still flirt. Here's a story time of how I got catfished by my best friend's dad. This story literally ends up taking a turn for the worse, so honestly, be prepared for that. So it was around 6th grade and I had just moved schools and I put on my Snapchat story, swipe up to be friends, because I didn't really know anybody around me, so I kind of had no friends. So this one dude swipes up and he's like, "Hey, you're really cute, we should talk more." And I was like, "Aw, thanks, what you look like?" He sends me a couple pictures of himself and he was so hot, so I was like, yes, let's talk more. So we started snapping so much that within a couple hours he was #1 on my best friends list. He would never show his entire face, he would always show like his jawline and stuff like that. Or like pictures of his underwear. Literally all I ever got was jawline pics or underwear pics. I literally got so comfortable with this dude, I told him stuff that nobody else knew. I told him I loved him and that I was catching feelings. A couple days later, I stayed the night at my best friend's house. She had softball practice, so I stayed at the house with her dad. Once we get back to her house, after dropping her off at softball practice, he said he had a big surprise for me. I'm running out of time, late for part 2. Here's part 2 on how I got catfished by my best friend's dad. Continuing on with the story, my dumb self didn't really think anything of it, so I followed him to his room. He closed the door behind me and he told me to be quiet. I was like, okay, what is this surprise that you have for me? He pulled out his phone and he showed me his Snapchat. And it was the Snap account that I have been snapping for the past couple of weeks. And the same guy that I confessed my love for. Mind you, I'm pretty sure her dad was in his mid-40s at the time. And I was only 12. He told me to give him my phone because I needed to be punished for my actions, so I did. I only did because I was honestly terrified and I had no idea what else to do. He told me since I told him I loved him, I needed to show him that I loved him. And he starts to take his pants off. I turn around and I run out the room and out the house. My house was only a couple houses down, so I ran all the way down to my house and told my mom everything that happened. I don't know if she really believed me, but he ended up convincing us not to press any charges against him. And I was never allowed to see my best friend nor him ever again. P.S. I never got my phone back and we had to move again.